Hello, yes, and welcome to Irish Football Fan TV on this Wednesday evening for these Premier League watch-alongs with Manchester United taking on Sheffield United and Everton taking on Leicester City. You're in the company of myself, Gerard Brown, and Gary Spain tonight. Gary, it was the two Pauls last night. Now it's back with the two Gs last night. How are you keeping?
I'm keeping well. Looking forward to the games tonight, and we'll see what happens. And could be it's already been some interesting results, but it could be an interesting night with games everywhere. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yes, strange them the three 6 o'clock kickoffs. Only one of them had goals in them, but it ends up being an absolute thriller, an unexpected 3-2 home victory for for Burnley against Aston Villa, a Burnley side that featured Robbie Brady. Of course, the two games we're going to discuss, we're going to be watching here tonight. I'm going to be watching Manchester United looking to reclaim top spot at home against Sheffield United, who are rooted to the bottom of the table, and already as we kickstart the second half of the season, look like they face a miracle to stay up. And Gary, you're going to be watching the clash between Everton and Leicester. Of course, Everton could potentially go, or Everton will go into the top four if they win that game. But Leicester could potentially go top if they could manage a big victory, and if Sheffield United could do them a favour. It's probably unlikely that Leicester will go top, but this is a game that they will be confident of winning. But having said that, Everton did win the reverse fixture 2-0 only as recently as last month.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a 9-goal win. Leicester need to go top, so I don't think that's realistic. And they also need, I think, Sheffield United, as you say, to do them a favour. So I can't see either of those happening. But I'm sure if Leicester could get a win, Brendan Rodgers would be very happy with that. And of course, for Carlo Ancelotti's side, a win, as you say, gets them into the top four. And also, even more important for Everton fans, it moves them above Liverpool in the table. And it would be some season for Everton, I'm sure, if they could finish the season above Liverpool. Doesn't happen too often. I know you're smiling. You won't be too happy with that, Ger. I'd say Paul would be a lot happier if he's watching in at home. But I would imagine it would be a huge fill-up and probably very important for Everton to finish above Liverpool. Maybe even more important than getting top four. I think they'd rather just finish ahead of Liverpool than even finishing third or finishing fourth with Liverpool in third. So anyway, tonight will tell a lot. It's a tough game because Leicester are even better away from home than they are at home. I think it suits them to sit back and play on the counter attack. Now, no Jamie Vardy, which I think will be a loss, and no Seamus Coleman for Everton. Unfortunately, he's on the bench. Mason Holgate has got the nod at right foot. But what about your game? Have Sheffield United any chance?
It's hard to make a case for them, although they were very competitive in the reverse fixture at Bramall Lane only recently as 5 or 6 weeks ago. They actually took the lead in that game. David McGoldrick scoring twice in that game and nearly got an equaliser in the end, only for a good save from Dean Henderson. I had a right smile on my face there because the thought of finishing above Liverpool seems to be more important than getting Champions League football for Everton. I think if they get Champions League football, whether that involves finishing above the red half of Merseyside or not, would be irrelevant. But back to this game, no, it's very hard to make a case for Sheffield United. Manchester United, kind of doing traditionally what Manchester United probably have done of old. Might not actually be playing fantastically or brilliant football, but they're playing winning football and they know a way to get results. And no more ever than the last couple of league matches. Their last four, really, they've all won by a single goal. And I don't think you can say any for them that they overly dominate the game, but they just find a way to win games. You have to give them an awful lot of credit for that. In fairness, there is a lot of similarities to what Liverpool were doing last season by winning games by just the odd goal. So you have to say they do tremendously deserve to be where they are in the table. Yeah, disappointment from an Irish point of view, similar as well for Sheffield United. Only David McGoldrick starts tonight. Obviously, John Egan misses this game through suspension. And then Stevens, I was just looking through the team news. It didn't kind of seem to be any reason why he's not even mentioned in the matchday squad tonight. Sheffield United aren't even naming their full complement of subs, so I presume it must be an injury there. So it does make their task all the more hard and all the more difficult. But as I said, they are bottom of the table. They're, I think, already 13 points adrift. They're only at the halfway point of the season. I know there's still a long way to go yet, but already you're starting to think, could they actually break Derby's record for the lowest points tally? So, as a Liverpool fan, I'd be optimistic and hopeful that Sheffield United could get a result here to obviously for their own sake, but if they could end up as well doing a favour for likes of Liverpool and teams around, it'd be great. But I can't see anything other than Manchester United winning this game, and I think unlike recent games, I think they'll have it actually a lot more comfortable in the scoreline tonight.
Yeah, they've been very good at coming from behind, but they probably won't need to do that tonight. Yeah, I'd agree with you. I would expect Man United to be fairly comfortable, but time will tell. It's already been an interesting night. I see Paul has already commented on it that for Jamie McGrath, well, actually, not just Jamie McGrath, it was a very good night for the Irish in St. Mirren, because St. Mirren went to Dundee United and won by 5-1. And 4 of the goals were scored by Irish players. Joe Shaughnessy gave them the lead. Conor McCarthy actually assisted on that. And then, as Paul said, Jamie McGrath come up with a double, both penalties. And Dylan Connolly came off the bench to make it 4-1. And in the end, somebody else, Christian Dennis, who's not Irish as far as I know anyway, made it 5-1 for St. Mirren. So quite a shock in Scotland. Just the other updates: Motherwell won at Ross County, and St Johnstone drew 0-0 with Aberdeen, and Celtic are 1-up at home to Hamilton, which will be good news for Paul. And Rangers are still drawing 0-0 at Hibs, but they're just almost half time, those games. And Livingston and Kilmarnock is 0-0 as well. And just keeping an eye on Brighton Fulham, which was a 7:30 kickoff, and that's 0-0 at half time. And again, no Aaron Connolly yet, unfortunately. Everton Leicester, well, it's in my game, it's 6.5 minutes gone, and Leicester have been the ones that have been on the attack so far. Everton been pushed back a bit, but no real chances, or keeper hasn't been tested yet. I don't know if there's much action at Old Trafford yet.
No, 6.5 minutes gone here with me so far. It's been a tame opening so far. Nothing really wild happening in terms of any shots or attempts. Manchester United, as you expect, keeping a lot of the ball, being kind of very patient with Sheffield United, as you would expect. Very well organised and getting a lot of men behind the ball. They actually have a bit of a counter-attack on here now, but Harry Maguire cuts it out for the pass, could get to David McGoldrick. Just going back there to the area point with St. Mirren as well, and it's also worth noting as well to put the icing on the cake for them. They have an Irishman as well in charge, and Jim Goodwin as well. He's been there quite a while. He was a club legend with them as well as a player. They're going very well this season, you have to say, Gary. Like, they got to the Scottish League Cup semi-final, knocking Rangers out along the way. They're in a pretty decent position by their own standards in the league. I think, look, if they could avoid the 11th place and they're in the playoff in the SPL, it's always a successful season for them. Just even in terms of that, like, he seems to have been a decent profile for himself since taking the job. Jim Goodwin obviously worked in the lower leagues in Scotland as well. Do you think he could be someone who could be seen as potential to work his way up through the ranks? And like Stephen Kenny was once managing in Scotland, like, who's know in years to come he could be someone who could be at some level fulfilling an international job.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously has done a good job there. And as you say, a legend as a player, won the League Cup actually as a player. And I actually watched the game. I'm sure you were watching Man United Liverpool on Sunday, but I actually watched the Livingston St. Mirren semi-final. And they were really unfortunate. Well, I thought unfortunate in that they conceded a goal in the first half and had a right go at Livingston after that, and basically left everything out on the pitch. They just could not score. It was just one of those days that nothing would fall for them, nothing would go right. And it's probably a big disappointment because, as you say, they beat Rangers in the quarter-final, they beat Aberdeen in the previous round. And having done what you'd say maybe the heavy lifting, they were a bit unfortunate to lose to Livingston side, albeit a Livingston side that's 11 games unbeaten and has been on a fantastic run since they got their new manager themselves. Yeah, I mean, Jim Goodwin's doing very well there. He may well come to the attention of teams, would you say teams higher up in Scotland or possibly in England as well. Who knows? I'm sure he's very happy there at the moment, and as you say, doing a good job. I mean, once St Mirren, I think, survive in the Scottish Premier League, that's probably their target and probably their level. Apologies to any St Mirren fans if you think you should be higher up than that or challenging for Europe or anything like that. But a great Irish contingent there as well, with Conor
Yeah.
McCarthy, Joe Shaughnessy, Jamie McGrath, Dylan Connolly, and they were all involved in the either scoring or assisting in the goals tonight. So yeah, uh, good times in. I was going to say Love Street, but it's not Love Street anymore. I think it's called the St Mirren Stadium or something, isn't it? What's the
I think so, yeah.
something like that? The name of their new ground. Just so I speak, actually, Leicester have a free kick outside the box, but it's straight into the wall. A very poor effort, you know. But it's still been all Leicester now. 10 minutes gone in my game, you know.
They're just approaching the same minute mark as well here at Old Trafford. There hasn't even been a single attempt on goal. Manchester United largely owning possession, but Sheffield United, as I mentioned, most of the time playing with 9, if not 10 outfield players behind the ball. Not giving up much space and much chance of them, but I don't think United should be anywhere near pressing the panic buttons yet. Like I said, still the early stages, finding your feet in this game. But slightly encouraging signs if you're a Blades fan watching this game too.
Okay. Just one thing, hi to David Salter. I think you're already left us, but we'll say hi anyway if you want to watch back the watch along. We had a discussion on transfer fees. There was a discussion on transfer fees, and David has done some research, so I'll just show some of these. So we were talking about, I don't know if you remember any in particular, some of the highest transfer fees for League of Ireland players, and in particular, I don't know if you remember any between players. So I see there John Murphy from Pats was 81k to Chester, Niall McGinn 54k, Dungannon to Derry City. Okay, that's Kieran Sadlier 45k, Sligo to Cork. Actually, that's a good one. I remember that now. And Sligo played 45k for Bocco. So Pat's spending 81k for. I don't actually remember that for John Murphy. Do you remember that, Ger?
I don't. Just I want to ask you. Probably even shows how little actually know about it. But what era would that have been around? Would have been Chester would have been a football league club, so maybe not 90s, early 90s.
Yeah, tis back back around then, but I just don't remember it. Maybe somebody else can fill me in on that. But yeah, or I don't know if anyone else.
I remember the other three that I mentioned there. All right.
Yeah, I hadn't. I remember Kieran Sadlier was 45k when he mentioned it, and I didn't realize Niall McGinn was that expensive, 54k. Maybe that's euros into sterling conversion, but I know actually Derry had paid well for him. But of course, they he subsequently went across the water. They probably made more money than that. And
yeah, he's someone who's gone on to have a good career for himself.
Yeah. Shout out if anyone's watching, if you remember any other big Irish transfers. Sean O'Donovan, no Seamus Coleman, it's hardly worth watching. Well, maybe he'll come off the bench. We'll see what happens. And hi to Michael Murney, and hi from us as well. And a question from Michael. Do you see SPL players featuring more if the players in England don't recapture form? Well, what do you reckon, Ger?
I think they could definitely feature in the squad. Like someone like Jamie McGrath and his form over the last 2 or 3 months is hard to ignore. That he could be definitely entitled to a squad call up. Like you've seen it in recent times, particularly due to injuries and COVID-related issues. We've been calling up players, say, from League One, particularly like the Ronan Curtis and like the Darrell Horgan is playing lower half championship. You'd like to think that the Scottish League probably isn't what it used to be and whatever else like that, but you'd like to think it's not too far off, or certainly similar to at least that standard. So if players like that are getting recognition and call-ups, I don't see any harm in possibly at least calling these players up into the squad. And like the way the matches work in March, we've got that third extra game with a friendly against Qatar, so it could be a good chance to bleed players in, the likes of Conor McCarthy and particularly Jamie McGrath, someone who's been playing very well. Like you do think back, like someone who was always, I think, a little bit hard done by not to get more recognition there in the squads when he was banging the goals for Aberdeen would have been Adam Rooney. So we do kind of always seem to look down on picking players from Scotland unless they're playing for Celtic or possibly Hibs. And like, I mean, when you see players being called up from League One, it does seem a little bit harsh and unfair. When you have to say it probably is of an equal standard.
Yeah, I mean, I see if we are going to League One, but it probably depends on the level, though. I mean, would St Mirren survive in the bottom half of the championship? I mean, where is their level? I suppose is where
Yeah,
I would struggle with this. And in the case of Joe Shaughnessy or Conor McCarthy, I think unfortunately our strength is in our defence, and we have so many options that we can talk about. Obviously, the Shane Duffys and the John Egan's, but Kieran Clark, Kevin Long, Darragh O'Shea. I mean, there's so many options at the back. It'll be very difficult for them to break in. Jamie McGrath, possibly. I mean, Stephen would know what he can do. But yeah, I'm not so sure. Is Jack Byrne ahead of him as the attacking midfielder? Well, Alan Judge. Well, then maybe you have a case as well that he should take a look at Jamie McGrath. I mean, the couple of goals tonight won't do him any harm, So, but I don't know. Well, unfortunately, my own view of the Scottish League is I think, unfortunately, Rangers and Celtic are just so far ahead of the other teams. And we don't have, well, with the exception of Shane Duffy, who's already an established international, none of the other lads have made the breakthrough to become a regular at Celtic yet. So I had hopes for the likes of Leo O'Connor, for Luke O'Connell, Jonathan Afolabi, and okay, well, I mean, they're out, and Lee's out on loan, Afolabi's out on loan. Luke O'Connell was on the bench a couple of times for Celtic recently, but I think that's when they had COVID issues. And Armstrong Oberflex as well is someone who's probably gone off the radar a little bit that people had high hopes for. But I probably don't expect to see too many from, well, certainly outside of Celtic making the squad. But as you say, there's 3 games in March, so you never know what'll happen. So
yeah, I think at best we're talking probably about like getting in the squad. I don't think we're talking about as you said, like, because the level is like so hard to judge, and it's probably, as we touched on, like probably being generous, saying clubs like St Mirren, for instance, where we have a strong Irish contingent, it probably is bottom half championship, and like we don't be looking to players there to be making a serious impact for Ireland in big games like that. Like someone like Joe Shaughnessy, I think, is someone, like, you could say it's been a little bit harshly done. Like, he's been someone who's been playing very well actually in the Scottish Premier League for a number of years. Like, he was having a good couple of seasons with St Johnstone, but like he's fighting to play against the likes of John Egan. You had Richard Keogh, Kieran Clark. Even like go back as far as maybe when John O'Shea was making the squad when he was with Sunderland in the Championship. Like, it was always going to be a very, very difficult and poisoned challenge for him. Just before we quickly move on, we actually had the first best chance of the game at Old Trafford, and it actually fell to Sheffield United. Billy Sharp 1-on-1 with David De Gea, but the Spaniard makes a very good save with his feet, as he always does. And then Man United then came straight down on the counter-attack, and Mason Greenwood had half a chance for them. So this game is starting to liven up after 17 and a half minutes.
Another, just checking up, Mick McCarthy at Cardiff, they were 2-0 down to Barnsley, but they've pulled back to 2-2. So hopefully Mick will get a decent result there. One
a real
from
Mick
Daza.
McCarthy derby.
Yeah, of course, the Barnsley man himself,
Yeah.
One from Daza. I hadn't heard this one. I hadn't even heard any mention of this before. Bet Man United signed John Egan in the summer. Well, an interesting one, because we already talked about the likelihood of Sheffield United going down. I think, Jerry, you're even predicting they could end up with breaking the Derby record. But what do you think of John Egan to Old Trafford?
I don't see that happening now. To be honest, definitely as a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't like to see it happen. But at the same time, it's no harm to see Irish players obviously playing at a top level. But I don't see John Egan kind of possibly even getting into Manchester United's team as well. That's just kind of being not highly harshness or anything else, but just being realistic. I think Egan is still actually having a fairly decent season, despite Sheffield United's woes and wobbles. Compared to last year, I would be hopeful, I would be optimistic that if Sheffield United do go down, which there's a good chance, looks like it will, that some Premier League club will take a punt and will take a gamble on them. I'd be optimistic that they would, but I don't see Champions League chasing or title chasing Manchester United being that club now.
Okay, yeah, well, I think United definitely have a need for a centre half, as possibly a couple of clubs at the top end of the Premier League. So we live in hope. It would be a fantastic move for him if it
Yeah.
happened. But certainly, I would hope, and I would agree with you that some Premier League club will, I think, swoop for him, because I think he's too good a defender to end up in the Championship.
Do you
And
think he would
another,
like get in ahead of someone like Lindelof, Maguire, Bailly when he's fit? Like I'm not 100% sure if he kind of would maybe out so any of them kind of three.
I think Bailly has been, I don't know, in and out. He's had quite a bit injury options,
Injury
or
prone, yeah.
injury prone. And I don't know. I haven't been convinced with Lindelof at all. Actually, I think John Egan is probably a better defender than Lindelof. Harry Maguire is doing very well for them. I know he gets a little bit of stick, but I actually think he's a really good centre half, and he will do a job for them. But maybe John Egan and Harry Maguire, a central defensive partnership. You never know at Old Trafford next season. Here's one for you as well, Ger. Peter Marr. Hi, Peter. What's your view on Klopp? Will he remain as manager for Liverpool? Is that even in doubt?
I think if any Liverpool fans are asking that, they seriously need, in my opinion, seriously need their head examined. I know you could say, and look at Frank Lampard, run of 8 games has probably cost him his job. Klopp isn't far off reaching that category now of run. I think it's 5 games without winning the league. 6, you could probably say in all competitions. I don't think you can really count that game against Aston Villa because it was against their youth team. But no, the question I'd ask, like if Liverpool were to get rid of, just say if the worst case scenario was to happen and we don't get top 4 this season, Leipzig knock us out in the Champions League, and like who are you going to get to replace Klopp? I can't see any kind of better manager out there. I can't see someone like Origi going, or sorry, his name's gone for me.
Allegri,
Allegri,
the
sorry,
Juve
yeah.
guy, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't kind of see someone like him going to Liverpool. So I don't think it's in doubt. I'm happy enough. Even if worst case scenario happens and we don't get top 4, I still don't think it makes Liverpool a very bad team. Yeah, I think there will need to be a small bit of surgery and a bit of a revamp in the summer, but no major overhaul. Like we've seen teams like Manchester City have had 2 fantastic years and they dropped off last season. Now this season, after even a bit of a wobble at the start of the season, they've come back. Chelsea in recent times, they've won league titles, been shocking the following season, come back and won another league. Fair enough under a different manager, but a largely the same group and core players. Like so, I think there's no need for Liverpool fans to be pressing the panic button yet. This is far too good of a team that's going to go into a demise. There was positive signs I thought to be taken from Sunday's game. Not only the fact that we just scored 2 goals, but until Fernandez's free kick, I thought Liverpool did look the more likely team. If anyone was going to win it, they did start creating a couple of chances, which has been alien some of the last couple of games. So I don't think he's under pressure. I think he'll remain as manager. The only thing that I don't like about him is that he just seems to now kind of like get caught up in everything. Like after the Southampton match, like he had to go mention Manchester United penalties. Like why bring Manchester United into the conversation? They weren't even involved in the game. Like the row with Des Kelly after the Brighton match. Like just why are you bringing unnecessary attention upon yourself? He just kind of seems to kind of like get wound up by everything. I think if he just kind of cuts out that kind of like someone could even just have a word in the ear, just saying like it's just a bad image. Just stop. It looks bad for a Liverpool manager to be whinging about silly little things and getting involved in stupid mind games. But other than that, like I've fully happy and fully behind Klopp.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
sorry, centre back actually as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, he does have Van Dijk to come back as well.
And we've had a goal at Old Trafford, and it is Sheffield United who've taken the lead from a corner kick. So, could one of the shocks of the season be on the cards here at Old Trafford?
Great stuff. Well done, Sheffield United. And maybe we're writing them off for relegation too soon.
Yeah, they have actually started this game very well, to give them credit. I'm just trying to look and see who the goal scorer was here. I've got the reverse or the replay come up here now.
My app says Brian, Bryan. I'm not even sure who that is.
Yeah, team sheet here with me. Yeah, number 29, Brian. He's playing as a fullback tonight. I'm not actually 100% sure who he is myself. I'll just have a quick look here on Flash. Kane Bryan, the 24-year-old, or just actually recently gone 25. Sorry, just gone 24. Sorry, yeah. So Sheffield United shock lead here. They did, as I mentioned, they did take the lead in the reverse fixture at Bramall Lane only a couple of weeks ago. United came back to win that game. You did touch on United have a good record of coming behind to win games as recently as Fulham last week as well. So don't think United fans will be pressing the panic buttons yet. But quarter of an hour gone, and like I said, there was warning signs. Billy Sharp did have that one-on-one. Sheffield United, no leaps in concentration so far at the back. They started really, really well, and this will give them more confidence now as the game goes on.
Yeah, interesting. Just come back to Klopp. I think it was Miguel Delaney, but I could be wrong. And I read an article, and it was just basic on that Liverpool have been going at such a high intensity. If you take 2019, won the Champions League, came so close to Manchester City to winning. I mean, went on a phenomenal run with a points record for runners-up. Came back in 2020 again, the high intensity COVID, won the league. And maybe it's just going to the well again for the players. And maybe it's just taken too much out of them. And they might need a break, particularly as there was very little pre-season this season. So it could be an interesting one. And I wonder, I don't think Jurgen Klopp's job should be under pressure or is under pressure. The only caveat I would say is that Germany may well they host the Euros for 2024, and I have seen some reports that possibly after the Qatar World Cup that they may look to get Jurgen Klopp in as national team manager, and possibly the allure or the attraction of managing his country in a home major finals and presumably going on to the 2026 World Cup in the United States as well might just be too much for him, the attraction, and he may leave Liverpool at that stage, but that's almost 2 years away yet, so time will tell. I don't know, Jared, do you think that's a worry that he may end up going back as German national team manager?
Just want to just quickly update you for something on a goal scorer first, Gary. You can add to your list of Irish goal scorers tonight, and you can add Conor Hourihane to that list. He's got his first goal for Swansea. He's got the equaliser in their game at home against Brentford. So yeah, so the goals are flying in tonight from an Irish point of view, which is fantastic to see. Yeah, that's 2022 World Cup, so that's roughly speaking, give or take, just under 2 years away. So that's another 2 seasons. Like, he's been there since just over 5 years at that stage. Like, he would have done 7 years. I think like his contract runs until in around then. Like, I don't think he could have any qualms to go at that stage. Like, I don't see him being anything like an Arsene Wenger or Alex Ferguson and staying on, into 2 decades and longer and stuff like that. So I do think eventually at that stage, yeah, that wouldn't kind of bother me. Especially if he could go on and win a couple more trophies by that stage. Oh, just hold on a second, just for a moment there. I thought Dave McGoldrick might have been in, but the ball just ran away from him. I don't think of any faults. It'd be interesting to see would Klopp be someone that would take to international management. I'm not quite sure. Maybe at that stage, because he's been, even himself, like, it was high intensity at Dortmund. He didn't have much of a break from that into the Liverpool gig. Maybe it's something like international management where he wouldn't have as much week and week tactics and kind of would allow a little bit of leisure time in between. Might be something ideal from it, as opposed to maybe taking sabbatical like what Pep Guardiola did after Barcelona. But yeah, that, I suppose, as well, the fact that it's a home tournament for Germany 2024, and they'll be obviously very keen to win that. And Klopp is probably, you probably have to say, is probably the strongest performing German manager at the moment. So no, that wouldn't kind of surprise me. Like I said, it's 2 years away. It's plenty of time. That's 2.5 seasons, and hopefully a couple of more trophies between now and then. And I think he'll leave with everyone's blessing. I think regardless, he's going to leave with everyone's blessing in Liverpool, because he brought number 6 European trophies. But more importantly, he ended that long drought and famine, and we had plenty of managers that couldn't do it, and he'd done it. So I think that's always going to leave an affection with Liverpool fans anyway.
Oh, I think he's definitely, without doubt, he'd go down in history as one of the greatest Liverpool managers of all time. And when you think of, there's some great names on that list, obviously, as well, like Shankly, Paisley, Dalglish, Fagan, etc. Probably forgetting one or two, but I mean, just the home finals, and maybe it's certainly from an Irish perspective, and maybe a selfish perspective as well, it's certainly one I would love us to qualify.
Yeah.
I think qualifying for Qatar is a big ask, and to be honest, I don't see us making. I think we could maybe make a playoff for Qatar, but I think getting to the World Cup with only 13 places for Europe. It's probably going to come a bit too soon. But Euro 2024 in Germany, and hopefully COVID will be in the history books at that stage, and we can be back with full crowds. But what a country to host a tournament. And it would be an amazing one for Ireland to be back. How many years that would be on from Euro 88? I try and do the maths. 36, Jesus, but that would be 36 years on from Euro 88. And just as I speak, Everton have scored. I think it's James actually has put it in, and I actually missed the goal because I was chatting. But we'll wait to...
on Euro 88, Gary, the mind was drifting somewhere else.
That's it. But it would be fantastic to get back to Germany. 36 years, it wouldn't feel like, well, of course, not 36 years yet. James took a shot, came back to him at the edge of the box, and a lovely curling shot from the edge of the box in off the far post. Lovely goal there from James. Right foot curled in off the inside of the post. So 1-0 Everton in after half an hour, and I think probably a little bit fortunate to be ahead in that Leicester had most of the play, but I don't think that'll bother Everton fans. So 1-0, but just going back to Euro 2024, it would be an amazing one to qualify. And even if we don't qualify, I'd highly recommend it as a tournament for fans if they were planning. I don't think too many. It doesn't look good for the Euros this year, Euro 2020 as it's still called, for too many fans there. And I don't know if too many would be too keen on going to Qatar. But Euro 2024 in Germany should be quite a tournament.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one I'm going to be going to, regardless whether we're there or not. It'd obviously be even better, and that obviously would really add to the whole tournament. But as you said, like, what a great country to host a tournament, and with it being so close to home as well, and would be kind of fantastic. As you mentioned, I think Qatar, just the distance and the time, and just before Christmas of next year, it's just going to be very, very difficult. And I kind of agree with you as well. Like, it is a tournament I will be a little bit more optimistic and confident that we can get there, because I think a lot of these young promising players are coming through, but really start to be coming into their own at that stage. And like I said, I think it's going to be very difficult to qualify for this World Cup. But I think even if we could just finish second in the group, which is something we haven't done well, not too often. Obviously, we done the last World Cup qualifying campaign, but you'd have to then go back to the Euro 2012 campaign, was the last time we done that. So we don't have a great track record of even finishing top two in our group. Even if we could just do that and get to the playoff, I think that would be even a sign of progress, because it's Serbia, I think, are going to be a tricky one, a nut to crack. Like, that first game away in Belgrade, like, that's going to go a long way to determine whether it's second or third we finish in that group. So, yeah, all roads leading ahead to Euro 2024 is what we're saying here.
Yeah, and I'd be very happy with second, obviously, and it would mean a playoff. But even a playoff, I think Portugal are going to win our group. Being realistic, they're just so strong. They have such quality players. And even if we'd Jurgen Klopp, as I said before, with Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, and even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well, given that he could be going top of the league tonight, even if all of them were managing the team, I think we'd struggle to qualify for Qatar. Finishing second, get to a playoff, I think that would extend Stephen's contract almost certainly for Euro 2024 as well. And March 2022, a 12-team playoff for 3 places. We'd need to win 2 single-leg ties. Probably a massive ask to qualify. So you're talking finishing ahead of Serbia realistically to get the playoff, and then winning 2 single leg ties in March 2022 might be a bit too much to ask. But I think even getting to the playoff, as you say, finishing second in the group would be quite an achievement. Yeah, the Serbia game will be crucial if we could go there and get a point, and then when they come back to Dublin in September, I think those 2 games will tell an awful lot about this group and see what happens. But Serbia have a tough start. I mean, they've us up first. If we can get a result, they host Portugal just 4 days later on the Saturday. And I would fancy Portugal to go to Belgrade and win. And at that point, then Serbia are going away to Azerbaijan. So it's a long trip. It's still, I know Serbia is a long way from here, but even for them to go to Azerbaijan, it's over 3,000 kilometers. And on the back of 2, hopefully, very tough games and hopefully 2 bad results for them, they could come a cropper in Azerbaijan, and that would really open up the whole group for us. But anyway, maybe I'm being too optimistic on this. But let's see what happens. Only a couple of months away now. Daz has a comment. Irish clubs are getting robbed by English clubs taking their players for free. Yeah, some players are going for free, and unfortunately, because we're not giving the extended contracts. Well, I suppose first of all, there's a couple of ways to look at this. The players under 23, there is compensation. You may say it's not enough, but I mean, I know Shamrock Rovers got an excellent deal for Gavin Bazunu. Unfortunately, some players, a lot of our clubs are giving 1 year contracts, and then if a player has a really good season and they're out of contract, then they can go quite cheaply or go for free. But I think maybe as well that people go back and say the Seamus Coleman, what was it, got 50 grand? I mean, that was an absolute steal. Maybe we could be asking more for our players. I don't know, Ger, what do you think?
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of it is just it's a tricky situation because of it's pretty much like a 1 year contract kind of sign on every year. Like, so it does make it very, very difficult and tricky. I know, as you mentioned, even like Bose now, because of, like, there was a clause in the contract and stuff, like, they got a good fee for Matt Doherty as well. Like, obviously, I know you touched on like the compensation with under 23 players, like, but you do kind of look back and think like if things were different, like how much could the Bowes have actually got recently there for Danny Grant? Like, so it's not ideal, but I wouldn't go around saying like English clubs are robbing us. It's, you know, they're taking advantage of a situation that unfortunately isn't a great kind of aspect of our own game here, and it is something we are kind of trying to improve. But hopefully, as things can kind of improve off the field in the league in the coming years, that's certainly one thing that like players can have longer contracts, and then it is going to result in them actually getting fees for their players.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. And I see Daza reckons Shamrock Rovers at Dundalk are better than the rest in Scotland, apart from Rangers and Celtic. Yeah, Daza, I actually agree with that. I think that outside of the old firm, that or certainly our top clubs would do very well in Scotland. And I mean, the only two meetings we've had in Europe this century have both resulted in wins for the Irish clubs. Derry City inflicted a then record home defeat on a Scottish club in Europe when they beat Gretna 5-1. I know that record's been smashed since. I think Spurs and Malmo have since had bigger wins away to Scottish clubs. And I'm sure Bose fans won't mind me remembering that they had a great win over Aberdeen. They went to Pittodrie and beat Aberdeen 2-1. And I think they had 10 men, if I remember rightly, for half the second leg, and still hung on to go through. So, and that, if I remember rightly, that's the same year that set up Bohemians and Kaiserslautern, and they actually gave Kaiserslautern quite a game. I was at the first leg in Talca Park, and it was some late goals, I believe, if I remember rightly, that Bose. And then, of course, Bose went to Germany and pulled off that amazing win. Not enough to go through, but what a result for a League of Ireland side to go to Germany and beat a German club in Europe. Could be a long time before we see that happening again. Daz is also wondering where Paul is tonight. Paul's at home, probably cheering on Everton. I'd say a very happy man that they're 1-0 up. So, and another one from Daza. John Egan is better than Harry Maguire. I don't know about being. I could think he'd be good enough to partner possibly Harry Maguire. I don't know. What do you think, Ger?
Yeah, like going back to kind of like your earlier point, like I definitely wouldn't disagree with you about John Egan possibly being better than Lindelof. Lindelof hasn't convinced me either at Manchester United. I think he's the weak link there. I think he physically can get very, very easily bullied, and I don't think he sometimes makes the best decisions. Where Maguire, I do kind of think like he does come in for a lot of criticism, but I do think he's the better of the two. And I definitely think if he had a good partner beside him, what a difference that could definitely even bring him on. But like, don't get me wrong, I think John Egan like has proven over the last 18 months, half a season and a half, like he actually is very comfortable at this level. It's just a shame and a pity. Maybe he just even wasn't 2 years younger. Like he's even closer now to 30 than 25. Like, so age is bit by bit just starting to go against him. But no, like I said, like I don't think he'd be Manchester United like become knocking the door from come the summer. But I would be hopeful and optimistic, even like at Burnley, maybe something a bit more glamorous than that. Like, but you know, Leeds, maybe someone like Leeds and with the style of football that Bielsa plays, like obviously would leave him very open at the back. But like a kind of hopefully kind of a secure kind of mid-table team, because Problem is, like, we see a lot with like players like John Egan who get relegated from clubs or are their standout player. They end up just joining other clubs that are going to be battling for survival. You'd be hopeful and optimistic that you can maybe get a slightly better move than that, and that, like, come, as I Ferguson used to say, squeaky bum time, that he'd be already starting to plan his summer holidays because he's with a comfortable mid-table team.
Okay, yeah, well, time will tell, and certainly I hope he's back in the Premier League next season. That's if Sheffield United don't actually manage to stay up, which you never know. If they can get the win tonight, they may well be able
Yeah,
to do that.
to be
Another
on
one from
what you would
Michael.
call a slightly good run of form, because that'd be 2 wins and 3 league matches for them then. Like, so it could be the kickstart to their season.
Okay, here's one from Michael again. I know Michael Martin O'Neill had a bad end to his reign, but he rewatched the Shane Long goal against Germany, Robbie Brady against Italy. For those 2 moments alone, he'll consider him a good manager. What do you think, Ger?
I think definitely, 100%. I'd agree on that. Like, for someone like me who was too young and wasn't even born for most of Jack. Well, actually, I don't think I was born for any of Jack Charlton's era. He left a couple of months before I was even born, and Saipan 2002 probably was even too young to fully appreciate what was going on there. So for me, like, Martin O'Neill has probably brought the best days ever I've supported Ireland. Like, just as he touched on there, them games against Italy, even the Wales victory. I know it didn't amount to us getting to the World Cup, but the buzz off that was absolutely unbelievable. The win earlier in that campaign against Austria as well. I was at the game against Bosnia when we qualified for the Euros. Best atmosphere ever in my life. At the Euros in 2016 for the Sweden game, like, unbelievable memories and some fantastic away results back then. Even that Austria victory as well. I think it was the first time ever in a competitive match Ireland bet a team ranked above them the FIFA World Rankings at the time. So 100%, I don't think you can ever take any of that away. And it was great, like, to kind of get a feel for what it actually was like in the Jack Charlton days, because that summer 2016 and that campaign was just, even still for me, was phenomenal. Like, even being 45 minutes away from a quarterfinal European Championships was just surreal. And the way things turned out, like, we would have went on to play Iceland, and who knows, we could have been in the semi-final against Germany. But no, I just think, like, after the Denmark game, it went very sour. It went very, very quick. A lot of people say probably should have went then. I could say fair enough. Like, look, you've had so many good results. We'll let you off the one bad result. But the friendlies after that just weren't really good. Like, even Turkey away, we were very, very poor. Stumbled over the line to be a poor USA team. And then the Nations League campaign started really badly. And I kind of felt after that double header in October 2018, when we drew at home against Denmark and lost to Wales, who were missing both Bale and Ramsden. I just felt that was the time to go, because I was like, look, we've got 2 games in November. Let a new manager come in to kind of put his stamp on the team and get an opportunity to work with the players before the start of the qualifying campaign in March, instead of having no games. I know in the end that didn't quite happen, but yeah, it was disappointing the way it petered out. It did slightly diminish my small bit. Probably should have ended a bit earlier than it did, but don't take away, for people like myself and in similar age profile, they were still some of our best days alive supporting the boys in green.
Yeah, no, they were. I mean, yeah, definitely 2018 was just an awful, awful, awful year. It was just depressing. You've gone through the games. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to relive that too much.
No.
But before that, and I definitely agree, he should have gone after the Denmark home game. It was unfortunate the way it happened. I mean, we had a very good campaign. Sean is dead right. That 1-0 win in Austria.
Yeah.
I was there. It was a great night in Vienna, and it's a hugely underrated result. The win in Wales, as you say, and of course the 2 that Michael mentioned with Shane Long against Germany and Robbie Brady against Italy. And then, as you say, we're 45 minutes away from the quarterfinals. 1-0 up. Robbie Brady again, 1-0 up at half time. And unfortunately, Griezmann, a couple of great goals, and Shane Duffy's red card as well, unfortunately, decided that. But we had played really, really well in that first half. And we had come so close to qualifying for the World Cup. We talked about the great away results. Unfortunately, the home form probably left us down. We really should have beaten that Austrian side in Dublin. They were missing quite a few players.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it went a bit wrong. Should have done a lot better against Georgia away and Serbia at home in the September 2017 games. But, well, So I will remember the early days of the Martin O'Neill era very fondly, and Euro 2016 was quite. And as you said, Joe, you're right. I mean, for many, I mean, I am long enough in the tooth to have been to Germany and Italy and USA and Korea and Japan. God, geez, I was taking holidays from work to go to Germany, so it's a bit scary that you weren't even born for another good few years after that. But anyway, we'll move on from that one. But yeah, I think for a generation of Irish fans, I think in Euro 2016, more so than Poland, which was a great trip. But unfortunately, I think it was like many Irish away trips, it was ruined by the football. But yeah. Sorry? Yeah.
Just one more kind of thing I just want to kind of bring up on that. But yeah, just as you mentioned that tournament, like for someone like me who was growing up and was listening to like Italian 90 and seeing all these videos, like to actually go and live and experience something at a major tournament for me was just phenomenal and fantastic. It was like a lot of people say like this probably was also a childhood dream, but to play and stuff like that, but to go for one as well was just brilliant. But just one last kind of point on that as well, just going back to that 2018 campaign, and Sean O'Donoghue in his earlier point brought up that victory against Austria and how underrated it was. But just kind of thinking back to then, like after that result, we had 4 games played in that campaign. We'd done a lot of the hard work. We'd gone and got a decent result in Belgrade against Serbia. Might not have been the best of performances, but we didn't lose. And then we won that game. We had 10 points with all the big teams still to come at home. Like, it's hard not to look back at that campaign and think that was a missed opportunity not to top that group. And the way things turned out in the end, like even if we just beaten Georgia away, drawn at home against Serbia, and definitely, as you touched on, Austria were there for the taking in that game in June 2017. They were already one hand, 1 foot out of the group already. They were missing a number of players. We went behind and we only came alive in that game the last 15, 20 minutes when Wes Houlihan came on. For me, that was a missed opportunity. Forget the Denmark game, the playoff. That was a missed opportunity for me not to qualify automatically.
Yeah, and that was the chance. Yeah, and a good shout from Sean John O'Shea in Gelsenkirchen in 2014. Yeah, that was some night. I mean, and we actually had played. We had played really, really, really well in that game, and we only went a goal down. I think it was Tony Cruz scored. I could be wrong on that, but he scored with about 20 minutes to go, and we thought, God, that's it. So disappointing. And goal. What was John O'Shea doing up there in his 100th cap as well? What was he doing up there? But what a goal, and what a great night to think we took 4 points out of 6 off Germany in that campaign. Well, what a job!
That's what got us over the line, really.
Yeah, it was, because we were very disappointing against Scotland. The defeat in Celtic Park was. Poland wasn't too bad. I thought we did well enough to draw 1-1 at home against Poland. And then the last game, we were already in the playoff. But the Scotland home game was a disappointment. We took the lead as well and really should have put them away, and we failed, But here's one for you, Ger. Well, I'll give an update, actually. Celtic have gone 2-up. Edouard has made Celtic 2-0, and Alfredo Morelos has made it 1-0 to Rangers at Easter Road. So, speaking of Rangers, speaking of Steven Gerrard, running away, I think he's 23 points or something clear at the top of the Scottish Premier League, seems to be doing an amazing job at Rangers. What a legend as a player for Liverpool. I mean, one of the all-time greats, and probably the best ever Liverpool player not to win a title. I don't know if you'll agree on that, maybe, but I mean, let people think on that. Steven Gerrard to manage Liverpool when Jurgen Klopp goes. What do you think, Ger?
Depends when Klopp goes. I think Gerrard, as you see, you have to be very, very careful with these kind of appointments and with the attachment and emotion that Gerrard bring. Like, Liverpool done it this time 10 years ago at Kenny Dalglish. They had the honeymoon effect for a couple of months. I know we won the League Cup the following season, but like the league season was a shambles and we petered out terribly. And obviously, the prime example recently is Frank Lampard. You have to be careful too. Now, I do think Lampard was harshly treated. I think he should have been given to at least the end of the season. I think, when you bring in a lot of players like that, it can take a while to get your stamp on the team. But no, if the case, like I said, Klopp leaves for the 2024 Euros, that cycle even in 2022, that's another 2.5 seasons away. Gerrard will have 2.5 more years experience. But I think like he's done very well at Rangers. I think the European campaigns there have been fantastic. Looks like he's finally going to win the league title there. So he probably even will put himself in legendary status there because stopping the 10 in a row and Rangers' first title in 10 years as well is going to be massive. You could argue it's going to be their Rangers' first football club's first ever title, but we won't go into a history lesson. But no, I think he's like, you have to be very, very careful. And I think he shouldn't just be given the job just because of the name. I think he should have the CV to prove it. So I'd like to see him after this role, see if he could possibly get a Premier League club. Could be a bit of a step up. Championship, definitely. Why not? And if he could then get Championship and then get a Premier League after that. But realistically speaking, for all that to happen, you're probably still talking 3 or 4 years. So I've pretty much probably talked myself out of wanting Gerrard to be next manager after Klopp. So probably not quite yet. Definitely a future manager, but I still think he probably has to go through another bit. Yeah, I don't see that happening, completing all that in the next 2.5 years.
The only thing is, I mean, you mentioned Frank Lampard, and yeah, I agree that it's probably a bit soon. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the game you're watching, I mean, could go back on top, could well win the league. And no, I admit, a legend at United who has taken a lot of criticism from United fans, but I don't think there's too many unhappy with him at the moment. Wayne Rooney could well, seems to be making a decent fist of it at Derby as well. And I don't know, these players, these legendary players, I don't see Steven Gerrard leaving Rangers for a championship club or leaving. I mean, he'll be potentially, I think they have won the league. They're on a great run, the Europa League as well. I mean, they're unbeaten in that. And I mean, finished ahead of teams like Benfica, Standard Liège in the group stages, if I remember rightly. I think if he's leaving someone like Rangers, it will be, I would think, to somebody like Liverpool or somebody of a pretty serious stature in the Premier League.
But it's a massive. I know, Rangers is a big club and fair enough and everything else and the expectation, but just in the gulf and the standard of the league, we touched on it there. Take away Celtic and Rangers, and the rest of the 10 clubs probably would be on. As we touched on, likes of Dundalk and Rovers probably better off. So it is, that even just indicates how much of a step up it is. I get fair enough, Rangers fans probably would also think the same way. There's no way Gerrard's ambition should be to leave us to go to a championship club because we're bigger than that. But the reality is it's a better standard and it's going to be a better kind of test for him. So I think, I don't know, I just think it'd be a massive, massive jump just to go straight from Rangers Liverpool. I know, fair enough, he's a legend and everything else like that, and he'll have the backing of the fans. And he would have dealt with having a club with expectation, and he's proved in Europe he can get big results and punch above his weight and this, that, and the other. But it's just a different ball game. You're going to be going from expecting to win the league, expecting to win Champions Leagues and stuff like that. And fans can be fickle enough too. They could be very, very quick to forget him as a player if things turn sour. You touched on with Solskjaer. I think Solskjaer is very fortunate from the point of view that it's very evident every time Solskjaer seems to be one game away from getting the sack, he somehow manages to turn around and pulls out a big result, which kind of for me indicates that the players are on board with him and they really do buy into him. It's just now it kind of seems to be getting the perfect gel. There's no guarantee that's going to happen with Liverpool. It seems as if it didn't happen with Chelsea. You kind of got the feeling that game against Leicester last week, if Lampard doesn't get a result, he's gone here. And Chelsea didn't even muster anything that game. Leicester were so comfortable. So just kind of shows how you have to be a bit careful.
Well, you mentioned Leicester, and their manager, Brendan Rodgers, had been incredibly successful at Celtic, won a couple of leagues, and he's doing quite a job now at Leicester as well. And I appreciate Leicester are not at the stature and as big a club as Liverpool, but he certainly come from Scotland, had done really, really well, won trebles, and he certainly continued, and obviously he'd done a fine job in Liverpool as well and was so unfortunate not to win the league in 2014. But so I wouldn't rule it out. Peter has an opinion on this as well. Give Klopp his last 2 years in his contract. Then Nagelsmann, forget Gerrard, last Liverpool manager to come from Rangers. It ended in 30 years without a league. Oh, Souness, Graham Souness, of course. I was struggling there for a second. Yeah, that's... yeah, I've forgotten that, actually. Yeah. But I don't know. I think Liverpool were in decline. I think even I wouldn't necessarily blame Graham Souness for that. I think Liverpool as a club were going into a bit of a decline there. And I don't know. I'm not a Liverpool fan. What do Liverpool fans think about that? Would you blame Souness? And was he part of the problem for the decline, or was it going to happen anyway?
I think definitely he didn't help himself in certain situations and stuff like that. And some of the signings back then were very, very poor. And I think he was very quick to rush on some of the older players and change the transition. But no, I kind of agree with you. Obviously, again, this is all pre my time, but from stuff you just kind of hear and pick up on, it did kind of just seem as if Liverpool's tide was kind of coming to an end. Like that year, the last year we won the league in 1990, Sir Alex Ferguson, won his first trophy at Manchester United, and that kind of kickstarted them and gave them a good bit of belief. Like you just kind of wonder as well the effect of Hillsborough. Like it also seemed to affect Kenny Dalglish a lot. Like that he left halfway during the following season and stuff like that. Do you think that didn't possibly help Graham Souness that he had to go straight into the thick of a title race and he didn't have the experience of that? Like I think if Kenny maybe stayed on for the remainder of the 1990-91 season, Liverpool might have won the league instead of Arsenal and might have slowed things down. But no, I think like there seems to be a lot, as you said, like the club were kind of maybe just a little bit slow to kind of adapt to a change in format and everything else and kind of culture and stuff like that. As it kind of proved as well, like you can't put down the whole 30 years success. Like there's so many managers came in after Souness and even they couldn't turn around. So it wasn't just, and that wasn't always because of everything that went wrong that Souness did. It was multiple other things. And Manchester United, obviously, at that stage were already starting to pull away, and you had Blackburn with money at time, with Walker, like Leeds were going, or not Leeds, Newcastle were going strong, and then Wenger came along and stuff. So there was a couple of other things, but no, I think, like I said, Souness possibly didn't help himself, but I don't think you can solely put that down. Like some people do like to say it just as a joke, like Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't the best thing to happen to Manchester United, Graham Souness was, but I wouldn't agree with that, no.
Well, you mentioned 1990. If Mark Robbins hadn't scored an equaliser with about 10 minutes to go, I think Alex Ferguson, well, there would have been the Alex Ferguson era in Man United. It would have been over that night at Nottingham Forest. And who knows what would have happened for the rest of the 1990s and the years, the decade, etc. to come. Just shows managers need a little bit of luck as well, and see what happens. Peter M is watching Celtic. Obviously, he's not too happy with Shane Duffy's performance. He says Hamilton nearly scored.
Yeah, just on about if Rafa Benitez came in, that might help as well. I've heard the odd rumour as well that maybe Frank Lampard could be getting that job. It does look like as if. Now, I've been hearing speculation that Benitez was getting the Celtic job on Saturday and Beckham was suspended and all that. Doesn't need to be much moving there. Do you think that Celtic at this stage of the season, it's a lost cause, like they're just going to stick with Lennon for the rest of the season? Or do you think they will act and like Rafa Benitez is free, he is available now?
They seem to be sticking with him. I mean,
yeah,
I've been following this on social media, and there's been a few days this month now that I've seen, oh, it's today, and he's going to get the sack, and it hasn't happened yet. And the word seems to be that they are sticking with him. I've seen the Rafa Benitez speculation, the Frank Lampard speculation. Eddie Howe was on backable in the bookies a couple of weeks ago. In some ways, I know Celtic fans are going to scream if I say this, because I don't know any Celtic fans that are backing Neil Lennon, but it does seem very harsh in that he's just won a treble. Only last month he completed the treble with the Scottish Cup final being held over. So Celtic have won the last 12 domestic trophies available. Now, I know they're going to say they've been awful in Europe, and obviously they got knocked out of the League Cup, but so have Rangers. And but obviously it's the fact the league table and the 23 points behind Rangers, and it does look like the 10 in a row is gone, which I know had been. You've probably seen the video yourself of Shane Duffy. I think was in a bar in Derry with the fans were already singing 10 in a row, and Shane was in there in the summer having a pint, and I think he even joined in the singing.
Never more than just a
Well,
pint.
okay.
Having a few of them.
Anyway, he was in the off season, so fair enough. But they were all. I mean, they were already celebrating the 10 in a row, and then that was actually before Shane had signed for them on loan. But I think that must have been a big factor, a big tug on the heartstrings. And unfortunately, it's gone so horribly wrong for Shane. And I know I've seen quite a few Celtic fans on Twitter. They're very anti Neil Lennon. They're very anti Shane Duffy. And well, it's not good from an Irish point of view. Peter is saying Duffy's having a poor game tonight. He certainly hasn't set the world on fire in Glasgow. It's certainly, from an Irish perspective, it's a concern for the game in Belgrade. At least I'm glad to hear Shane is still keeping his place. I did watch the Hibs game a couple of weeks ago at home to Hibs. Now, Shane was partly to blame for the late equaliser, but I actually thought he had a really decent game that night. And having lost his place for a couple of games before that. But I don't know, I suppose time will tell. I think it's fair to say when you're 23 points clear at the top, and as just checking, Rangers are still winning tonight with 16 minutes to go, that it's very hard to see them losing the league. And Neil Lennon, I think he probably will survive till the summer, but there will be Eddie Howe, Frank Lampard, Rafa Benitez, whoever will probably be taking over at that point. Sean O'Donovan is just commenting on outstanding from James. Yeah, it was a bit sloppy. I agree with him, sloppy defending from Leicester. James had got the ball, the edge of the box, kind of lost control of it, kind of hit it against a Leicester player, and it came back to him. But once it came back to him, it was a lovely touch, and just took it onto his right foot, and a lovely curling shot to stick it in. And Daza as well. Qatar won't be easy to beat. Yeah, he has a point. They won't, but to be honest, I don't really care too much, because they don't. Those games don't really matter. They're only friendlies. Qatar have been getting better. I think they've been taking advantage of the eligibility rules as well. They may have a couple of players who aren't actually Qatari born, if I remember rightly. And they probably will be a bit tricky, and they'll obviously be wanting to measure themselves. That's why they're in our group. They want to measure themselves against European opposition. But ultimately, the Qatar game doesn't matter. I mean, if you offered me a point in Serbia, a win over Luxembourg, and a 5-0 home defeat by Qatar, I'd gladly take that, and even a 5-0 away defeat by Qatar. Embarrassing as it may be, the important things are the competitive games this year. And Stephen has the 2 friendlies against Qatar. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But and he's probably got a couple of friendlies in June. But frankly, they're for experimentation. Those results do not matter. It's whatever Stephen wants to do. But we have to get it right in the competitive games. And it's the games against Portugal, Serbia, Luxembourg, and Azerbaijan are going to define this campaign and hopefully get us to at least a playoff. And who knows? Catch Portugal on a bad day in November and maybe top the group.
That's from 2 bad days in Lisbon in September as well.
Yeah. Peter M, have Serbia got a new manager yet? So there was actually, I think it was Milosevic was originally tipped to get the job. I read during this week that Dragan Stojkovic was possibly getting the job, or I don't know if he actually got the job. And would be a legendary player. I mean, I remember him from the 1990 World Cup, an absolutely class player. And I actually saw him. He was brilliant. Yugoslavia, as it was then, beat Spain to reach the quarterfinals of the World Cup. And we were at the game in Verona, and we'd actually plans to go and watch them again in the quarterfinal in Florence. That was the original plan. But David O'Leary had made a mockery of that, and we had to go to Rome instead, obviously. But quite a player. It'll be interesting. I that may be just speculation. I haven't actually seen it confirmed that he was the manager, but I certainly saw something. Maybe it was only just yesterday that he was now the favourite to get the job. Not too sure about Serbia being in turmoil. They're also actually, interestingly, they're playing away. They're over in Central America, playing a couple of games, but only with the players from the local league. So, but with no new manager in place for that. Daza, I think we're getting carried away talking about going to a World Cup or getting a playoff, considering we can't score a goal. Well, yeah, it's maybe we're being a little bit optimistic, but hopefully the goals will come. And Seamus Coleman was 60k. That's right, it was 60k, not 50k. When you say it, you're spot on. Yeah. And Daza as well. My cousin played for Bowes v Kaiserslautern. Well, Daza, who's your cousin? Say big shout out. That was some win. It was Glenn Crowe, I think, got the winner. It was a 1-0 win. And that must have been some night to be a Bowes fan, to go to Germany and beat Kaiserslautern. And Paul Tierney's watching. Go on, the lads. Go on, Sheffield United. Oh, you, Paul. Come on, Sheffield United as well. Absolutely. And who's the goal scorer for Sheffield United? Well, I hadn't heard of him either, but you can give me his first name, Ger. It was Brian, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kane or Keem, I think it is. Kean. To be honest, he only came to my recognition as well when I was watching their game, their last actually Premier League outing against Spurs. He came on as a substitute, I think, in that game, if I'm correct in saying. So he's 24 years of age. Not sure if he was a summer signing or what, because I don't remember him featuring from last season. So look, it'd be the toast of the red half of Sheffield tonight anyway, if they can hang on in the remaining 45 minutes. Second half has got underway here at Old Trafford. It is also worth noting as well, forgot to mention as well, Manchester United did have the ball in the back of net in the first half through Martial, but it was ruled out for a foul on Ramsdale just before that strike. So frustrating first half. Manchester United never really got going. Don't remember Ramsdale have to make too many saves or even too many attempts on goal. You have to give Sheffield United an awful lot of credit for that. And they have looked a pretty decent threat on the counter-attack. You have to give credit to the likes of Billy Sharp and Dave McGoldrick up front for them. They put in a tremendous service as well, and they're playing their part too as the rain buckets down.
It's the second half is a couple of minutes underway here too. It's still 1-0 to Everton. Peter M reckons he would cost less than 12 million. That seems very cheap to me. And Sheffield United are not financially stable. Yeah, I had read actually they'd spent quite a lot of money, and it would be a big blow for them to go down. And he reckons Leeds, Celtic are a top 6 club. Well, I'd certainly love to see him go to a top 6 club. And really appreciate the comments, guys. Keep them coming in, and don't forget to smash the like button as well.
Would you just be slightly worried about going to a top 6 club? Like when you look at someone like, for instance, Matt Doherty this season, and it hasn't fully taken off for him at Spurs, and he's struggling, and someone like Aurier has suddenly just found a new pep of life in his kind of game.
Yeah, I would. Certainly, I would like to see him get to play regularly, but it would be great to go to one of the top 6 clubs and be playing in Europe as well. I think it would really bring on his game a lot. Sean, I'm the same as Jeremy, 2002 baby. So my best experience an Irish fan came from Martin O'Neill's reign. He didn't do a bad job at all. Yeah, it just did turn very toxic at the end, you know. Kids here that were not around in the 1990s would think the Bosnia trap. Okay.
Seen a game on the trap.
Bosnia game. The Bosnia game on the trap.
The warm-up for the Euros, was it? Must be on about.
No, it was O'Neill beat Bosnia in 2015. And trap. We did play Bosnia as the warm-up. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it did. That's right. Yeah.
It was the Estonia playoff that we qualified for 2012.
Yeah.
And he says 2012 was crack, bad football, but Poland was unreal. Yeah, it was unreal, Peter. It was a fantastic experience, unfortunately, apart from the football.
I'd say your wallet wasn't as badly hit for that tournament as 4 years later as well.
No, it wasn't. It was actually very reasonable. Although I brought the kids and all, we had a fantastic holiday. So we actually stayed in Łódź, as it's pronounced, I think. It's Lodz, probably most people would call it Lodz. And which was away from all the the atmosphere, unfortunately, so missed a lot of the stuff, but did travel to Poznan and Gdansk for the games, and absolutely brilliant atmosphere. So I didn't have a huge amount to drink, so obviously with the kids with me at the time, but it was amazing to be there. Great atmosphere and all that, and absolutely loved it. And then went to Warsaw for a few days. Actually stayed for the two Polish quarterfinals. But yeah, the great trip.
Yeah, just Manchester United after missing a very good chance. They probably should have equalised here in 5 minutes second half. Lovely ball by Bruno Fernandes playing Mason Greenwood, but he absolutely scuffed his shot across the face for goal. So a missed opportunity for Manchester United early on in the second half. But as I mentioned, still 40 minutes of football left to play, so you still would be optimistic if you're a United fan. Like, stack him up there on BT. They've claimed 21 points this season from losing positions. The next team after that is Liverpool with 10, so they have a very, very good record for coming from behind this season.
Okay. Sean Bonner has a very complicated scenario there. The only one I give Sean is a few minutes to go against Denmark after Matt Doherty's goal. If we got one more goal, we were through. I don't know, but I think in fairness, Switzerland and Denmark deserve just to edge out that group. One from Paul. I had meant to talk about this tonight, but maybe I'll let you go first, Ger, because last night the two Pauls were reminiscing about their playing. Well, they're still playing their current playing days, and they were speculating on my playing ability, which they were way, way overestimating it. I will talk about my playing days, but I was a lot more enthusiasm than skill. But maybe you'll give us a run through. I know you're still a young man, so you're still playing, and I know you play GA as well. But maybe you can talk about your playing time.
Yeah, unfortunately, my playing days and football have been cut short since 2018. Just unfortunately, because the club from back home, we haven't had an adult team since. We tried to get going this year, but it never happened. And actually, the way things turned out anyway, the league hasn't even kicked off because of COVID and stuff like that. There's only a handful of games in October, and it's been all plug since. But no, the club I would have grown up playing for would be Loch Harps, just there in. We were playing the Roscommon and District League, which is a weird scenario. We actually take in parts of Galway as well. So some clubs like Glenamaddy Celtic, Shivan Rovers, Moylaw, Ballinasloe Town, they'd all fall into our league as well. Just probably because Galway is just such a big county.
Castlereagh Celtic is up there as well.
Castlereagh Celtic, they're probably the main senior team now. Well, St. Peter's, who originally would have been, they're an Athlone-based club. So I'm not sure what league they used, but they came into the Roscommon League back in 2016-17, and they've been very, very strong. Boyle Celtic as well, traditionally would have been the Sligo Leitrim League. They've also dropped into the Roscommon Senior League the last couple of years. Obviously, they had a great run to the FAI Junior Cup semi-final back in 2017, lost out on penalties, had that memorable quarter-final victory against Clarny Celtic along the way. So yeah, I would have put all the way up. Right up. We had what I like to call our Invincibles team at under 14 level. We won the league, only I think dropped 2 points along the way. Standard might be a little bit questionable, but look, at the time we thought we were something special. That's probably actually my only honour, unfortunately. I've lost a couple of cup finals under 16, under 18 level. Mainly played in midfield. At adult level, I actually ended up finding myself playing a lot at fullback. I kind of was blessed because my local GA club, we got in a good run back in 2017. They got to the intermediate club final. So because a lot of lads weren't unavailable, it gave me a good chance for me to kind of get in that season and play. So I was kind of, it worked out perfectly for me. I would have played a lot of that season kind of right back. I think I've played actually in every position at some stage or another, apart from centre back. But my most comfortable position probably would have been fullback or kind of defensive, kind of holding midfielder.
Okay, yeah, probably a much higher, still a higher level than me, and you have actually won something. Well, the only thing I did win at football was we did win one kind of a summer blitz one time, so we did get trophies and all for that. And one of my highlights, because I scored a couple of goals in the final, although I would have to give the credit to somebody else. For one of them was a tap in near the end, but the other one, I did play what I thought was a lovely ball into the box, and the centre forward running onto it kindly admitted, honestly admitted that he dummied it, which he did, and fooled the keeper, and the ball just trickled inside the far post. But good vision from him. Yeah, I was a very limited footballer. I love football, playing it since I was 4 years of age. Started out the first organised football at my when I was playing schoolboy, which wasn't today or yesterday. Well, what would it be? 44 years ago, I would have been playing under 10. Playing originally, so I come from a strong football family, and my dad was heavily involved in football. He was a League of Ireland referee and linesman back in the 70s, and he'd been well known in Limerick. And on my mother's side, it's more of a rugby family, I'll admit, but my granduncle did play for Limerick as well. And my grandfather would bring me to the Markets Field when my dad was away refereeing on my mother's side. And so I started playing with Wembley Rovers, who at the time would have been the premier club in Limerick at under 10. But after a couple of games, I was quickly discarded, and they decided I wasn't good enough, which it's a bit harsh to find. And it was pretty brutal in those days. And but all I wanted to do was play anyway. So I joined another club, which was my schoolboy club. At the time, they were known as Rovers United and ended up becoming Somerville Rovers. I'm not actually sure of the history of the disputes and all that were going on at the time, but effectively a more famous club in Limerick called Hyde Rovers, who became Hyde Rangers, they actually split. And I could be getting this wrong. If there's anyone from Limerick that knows the proper history of this, maybe they can come in on it. But we split off from Hyde. But I mean, I just wanted to play. My dad would have known the coach Shamey Mack very well, and Shamey was a great guy, great coach, and we just wanted to play. So I was actually playing for the B team. And as I said in last night's comments, the only reason I was on the B team was because we didn't have a C team. But I played right back all the way up 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s. Had a stint, I think, at under 14 or possibly under 16 at centre forward for about 3 or 4 games. Because I was tall and big, I was actually very skinny in those days as well. And didn't score, missed an absolute sitter. Actually at a team, Corbally United, which is my home, the area in Limerick I'm from. And there wasn't actually a Corbally United when I was playing under 10. They only got formed a couple of years later. So I'd already got my club at that stage. And which would have been nice to score away from home at my local football pitch. But unfortunately, I missed it. The ball came back off the post. It was 6 yards out. And I totally fluffed an open goal. So it was absolutely awful. But next week, it was back at right back. And I moved up, took a ball at the edge of the box and from a throw and buried it in the bottom corner. So one of my most memorable goals. But it was in the second tier of the Limerick Schoolboy League. We never got promoted. We didn't get relegated either. But it was, look, I was happy to play. I loved playing, but it was at a low enough level. Some of my friends were actually much better footballers than me, did end up getting trials, and there's actually a funny story. Well, I think it was a bit of an unlucky story in the case. There was some very talented players at my age group in Limerick. Now, I was on the B team of Rovers United, so there was no way I was getting near any Limerick trials. But there was some very good teams at the time, Wembley, Verker Clements at my age group. And the Limerick trials, there was a Limerick team, a Dublin team, a Cork team, and a Waterford team. And I actually remember they went and played weekends of matches to pick the Irish schoolboy team. This would have been age 14 or 15. And Limerick hammered Cork and Waterford. Dublin hammered Cork and Waterford. And on the Sunday, Limerick played Dublin. And in an absolutely amazing, fantastic match, Limerick won 1-0. Now, Noel O'Reilly was managing the Dublin team. And there was expectation that 5 or 6 of the team would have gotten the Irish squad. And not a single one of them made the team. It was something like 13 or 14 from Dublin, 1 from Cork and 1 from Waterford. And it was outrage at the time. And I remember it was absolutely disgrace. But funnily enough, many, many years later, I'm sitting telling the story like this to a colleague who was actually quite a decent footballer and ended up playing League of Ireland, but he was working in the computer industry. And he told me, and he says, I was on that team. He says, I remember that match. And he said, you're right. He said, we thought, yeah, there were a few of us are going to be in trouble. And Noel O'Reilly, who was the manager and was also the late Noel O'Reilly, a fantastic man, the assistant to Brian Kerr, got us back in the bus, and we're thinking, God, this is a disaster. Oh, don't worry, lads, you're a bit unlucky. You'll still be on the team. And he said, well, that's the way it was. But a lot of ill feeling in Limerick after that one. In college and as an adult, I went to UCC, played a bit, but only kind of, I wasn't anywhere near again the UCC team. Played doing computer science, played a few games down in the Mardyke against different faculties and things like that. Played some interfirm and work and all that, but I was never living in Galway and then living in Dublin. Never a talented footballer. So the successive Irish managers have not missed out, and they wouldn't want to become looking for the stands for a player. But
no, I should have added as well. I very much fit that description as well. Limited enough kind of player, like I said, mainly just got a run in an adult team just because of the fact that we had less players around and like other lads weren't able to get around. So I was far from like kind of a first choice contender. I remember my first year playing adult football would have been the 2015-16 season, and like it was Lockharps. It was our first year back up having an adult team in a while, so we had to start down at the bottom in the second division. Like we ended up actually winning the league and the cup, the divisional cup that season. We ended up doing the double. Like I think I played a combined total of like 4 games in total. Might have only started 1. Like so, just like at that stage, yourself, when you're only a young lad starting off, can be very hard to break in. A lot of lads are kind of always kind of enforced as well. Like the age group below me was always kind of the go-to kind of age group. They got to like the last 16 of the FEI Cup at under 15 level. They played actually Luke and Celtic came down, big crowd at home game. Not sure, I don't think they were still there at the club at the time. The likes of Mark Travers and Conor Masson would have actually been their age group as well, but I think at that stage they had already moved on. I know there was kind of the big thing was always said when Conor Masterson met the bench a few times to the Liverpool senior team. Oh yeah, that lad played in Lockharts a couple of years ago, but I think he actually had moved on from Lucan at that stage, unfortunately. I could be wrong now, actually, but I don't think he did. But yeah, a couple of players. Carlton Ubazu now probably would be the most famous. He was the age group below me. He's currently with Galway United in the League of Ireland. Like, and because he was so good, like he used to play the age group above us as well. You could just tell he had that kind of cut above him. He actually, Dundalk actually, I think, signed him directly from our club as well. Not sure if the name might ring a bell with you now, Gary, just know because you're stalwart football man. But Nathan Murphy from Off the Ball, his father Mihal would have been heavily involved in our club as well. I'm not sure if you'd be familiar with him now.
Okay, no, I haven't. I don't really know. I know Nathan from listening to the radio, but I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, that's so. I do remember
a neighbouring club of ours that would have been the big clashes in the same parish, the same GA catchment area, Clonfad United. They actually reached the last 4 of the FEI Junior Cup back in
I remember them back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, they got to the semi. Yeah, I remember that actually. Now that you say it, yeah. I remember actually. I was trying to figure out where Clonfad was when I saw they got to the semi-finals.
It's a weird one. They play in the Roscommon in District League, but there's a sign just before you come to the pitch saying "Welcome to County Mayo." So it's a Clonfad. It's funny when anyone knows back home. It's literally definition of geography. It's 3 counties: Mayo, Roscommon, and Galway. There's very, very little between. The village itself is actually in County Roscommon, but like you're no distance out the road, and you're in County Galway and Mayo. As I touched on there. Like the pitches in Mayo, a lot of their players would be from Mayo. They'd be Mayo supporters when it comes to GA and all that. So it's always an interesting one. Always leads to plenty of banter around our area, certainly when it comes to matters like that. But yeah, they like a lot of that team still now. Go through that team would still be involved in the club or would still be living around the area. They're still held in high regard and kind of would be traditionally still known for being a strong soccer village or football village, would say. Clonfad, and largely because of that great run that they had 25 years ago.
Yeah, geez, it doesn't seem like 25 years ago. So.
Yeah, it's Cherry Orchard they played in that game, wasn't it? The semi-final.
Oh, I can't remember who they played. I just remember they had a great run. Yeah. So David loved watching Shane Duffy for Ireland, but he wouldn't have him near the starting 11. Yeah, it's we've been talking about that quite a bit on a few of these watch-alongs. So And probably, I would say, a bad night again well, he kept a clean sheet. I don't know, actually, the Celtic game isn't a result yet. They're 2-0 up still, but it's in the 90th minute. But I'm saying a bad night for Celtic because Rangers have actually won 1-0 at Hibs. And I think that's another big step on the way to I know they're 23 points clear, but I think if Celtic would have any hope of denying Rangers and getting the 10 in a row, they would have been hoping Rangers would drop points when they're playing away to Hibs. And well, Stephen Gerrard just keeps going on and on. 1-0 away to Hibs, and I think his Rangers have only drawn 3 games all season. The domestic in the league, they've won every other match. So I think the league is effectively over. It's just not going to happen now. I don't know. Any Celtic fans have any hope that anything can happen?
Just to cut in there for a second, Gary, because we've had a second goal at Old Trafford and it is 1-1. Terry Maguire, the Sheffield boy, has scored against Sheffield United, that is, to equalise for Manchester United. A corner from Tansebi and it met the head of Maguire and it flew past Aaron Ramsdale. So that levels at 1-1. Just before that, Dave McGoldrick had an audacious effort from the outside the box with the outside of his boot that wasn't too far away. And a couple of minutes later, he blasted miles over the bar 1-on-1 with De Gea, but he was actually offside. I think he might have known that because he just went for pure power instead of any placement. So halfway through the second half, 65 minutes gone, Manchester United now back on level terms, and they're about to bring on Edison Cavani.
Yeah, and the other game, Brighton and Fulham, finished 0-0, by the way. That's over now.
Better result probably for Brighton than for Fulham, you'd have to say.
Yeah, I think it keeps that little gap that they're just a few points ahead of them. So I'm not sure how to pronounce EU, but who do you think should be the goalkeeper for the World Cup qualifiers? Well, Ger, as a Liverpool fan, Caoimhín Kelleher be the keeper?
It looks like now, with Liverpool going out of the FA Cup, unless barring another injury for Alisson, it doesn't look like Kelleher is actually going to get any more game time, unfortunately, between now and March. I definitely would like to see if it's a scenario situation where Kelleher can get more game time with Liverpool, or even if he can get a loan move next season, that he can definitely be phased in gradually during this campaign. Because he's acquitted himself quite well, particularly in them 2 games against Ajax and Wolves, and didn't let the side down, and looked like he's something about him. But I think Randolph, I know he's not playing as much football as you would like with West Ham, but the fact that they still are in the FA Cup, so that might offer him some game time. But he's never really kind of let us down through the years. I know he obviously had that bit of a mistake against Finland in the Nations League, but in general, when it's really mattered, he's very rarely let us down. He's kind of used to coming in a little bit cold with us now the last couple of games and stuff like that. So I still would expect him to start. I don't think the Serbia game, the first game, is going to be a game where Stephen Kenny is going to be looking to hand out too many debuts. And I expect that to also be the scenario when it comes to picking his number 1.
Okay, yeah, I'll come on to give my opinion now. Just there's been a goal here while you were talking, and it's Tielemans has equalised for Leicester. Well, actually, it's going to VAR, is it? I'm not sure. I have the sound down, obviously, but it was a bit of a disaster for Everton. The ball was played back to him about just a couple of yards outside the edge of the box. No, the goal's been allowed. He looked a bit worried there for a second. It's definitely 1-1. Ball was played back to him just outside the box, and he drove it through a forest of players. And Jordan Pickford, very, very poor in my book. He just kind of parried it into the net. I think it did. He probably was unsighted. It did come through a few legs. Maybe it took a deflection, but I still think he should have done better. The England goalkeeper should be top goalkeeper, should be saving that. Am I being harsh? I don't know. Maybe. On the Irish goalkeeper, I think it should be Darren Randolph as well. I think Caoimhín Kelleher is doing really well, and I wouldn't be concerned if we had to throw him in. But I think I've said this before about a few players that away from home, Belgrade, even if there's no fans or limited numbers of fans, which I think is all we're going to get, and probably no away fans certainly. It's still going to be a difficult place to go. I think you'll want experienced heads and experienced goalkeeper. And for me, I would have Darren Randolph in the nets. Frank Roach, is Stephen Kenny the right man for the job? Ooh. Go Go on, Ger. I'll let
There's
you go first on this one.
a bit of hesitancy when you're there first, Gary. I was a bit surprised by that. I still think he is. I know the Nations League was a major disappointment. I would have expected us to take a couple more points, a couple of goals, and a couple of wins from that group. But I think, like, ultimately, at the end of the day, the main game so far that he's had, the really only kind of proper competitive game we had so far, was the Slovakia match away in Bratislava. And by far and away, that was our best performance that night. We really did raise the levels that night. A bit more luck, we would have won that game, and we wouldn't have even needed a penalty shootout. I think this is where the campaign really starts now, where it really kind of begins for Stephen Kenny. The Nations League was a chance to kind of bring in younger players, and you have to say a lot of them put their hands up and done well. Jason Malumbi, Darragh O'Shea, and Jason Knight all did very, very well, and definitely look like they're going to be good players for the future going forward. He was unfortunate with COVID scenarios and injuries. He's unfortunate at the moment that no one really at club level, even from an attacking point of view, is banging and scoring the goals. The only one who is David McGoldrick, and I seriously still think Stephen Kenny should get on the phone to McGoldrick. Definitely if Sheffield United go down, because that was one of the main reasons he said he wants to retire, was to concentrate on Premier League his career. No disrespectful to David McGoldrick, but his age profile and all that, I think if Sheffield United go down, I think he'd be someone who'll be playing with them in the Championship next season. Could be wrong. You never know, but still think he needs to get on the phone to him, because he was fantastic. He was probably our best outfield player, probably our best player overall in that Slovakia match. So I think this is where it kind of really begins. I think it's even interesting for Stephen Kenny over these couple of weeks. I know he's other things to be worrying about, trying to fill up his backroom team with departure of Alan Kenny and Damien Duff. But I was listening to a podcast over Christmas with Michael O'Neill, and he was talking about his kind of first couple of games in Northern Ireland, and that first campaign when they couldn't beat the likes of Azerbaijan and teams like that, and they really struggled. But he kind of said, like, well, for 70 minutes of games, they would have actually, if games stopped at 70 minutes, they would have ended up finishing third in that group. And that was kind of the positive he kind of linked onto then going into that Euro 26 qualifying campaign, and where they got the belief that we're not that far away. I think Stephen Kenny has to kind of try and kind of pick that element as well. Like, look, for instance, maybe the possession stats. Like, we've been very, very good in terms of passing, ball retention. Just kind of point to that and say, look, we're proving that, like, our general play is not that bad. If we can just get a clear run now with injuries, if Aaron Connolly or Colin Robinson or someone can hit the ground running and get a goal, it can take off. And suddenly everyone will kind of say, well, we're getting results and we're playing a good brand of football. So definitely give him time. Like I said, if we can even at least finish second in this group, and whatever happens in playoffs, that's progress. That's kind of a sign that we're going somewhere, that he's proven he's up for the job. Like, if we can beat Serbia, because it's a while since we've beaten even a team in around a similar level to us, particularly at home. If we can do that, it definitely justify it. It's very early days. I still think he's the right man for the job. I think unless this campaign is a disaster and say we finish a distant third or even finish lower, fair enough. I think maybe his contract should be terminated premature. But at the moment, he still gets the 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I agree, Jared. It's too early. I mean, it's too early to make the call. I mean, he hasn't, as we said, with COVID, he hasn't had a game with even the fans in the stadium. He hasn't even been able to have his family at a game yet. And we haven't. I mean, the Nations League was always looked at. I mean, even when Stephen was given the job, the view was Mick McCarthy was the man to hopefully get us to Euro 2020. Stephen would take over. The Nations League was for experimentation, and even a little bit the qualifiers for Qatar. But so he was a bit unfortunate, and as you say, Slovakia was the best performance. But I think the time to make that judgment is next November. Now, as you say, if we win the group, or if we qualify for the playoff, then he gets a new contract for the Euros 2024. I think his contract is actually up at the end of this campaign. So, yeah, and it does boil down to how we do. And I don't necessarily mean that we need to get out of playoff or win the group for him to keep his contract. I think he would have to finish third. I think anything below Luxembourg or Azerbaijan would be just a total disaster, and that's just unthinkable. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we are much better than Luxembourg and Azerbaijan, but it would have to be say. I mean, it depends on the performances and how we do. I mean, who knows? We could be undone by a bad refereeing decision or a bit of bad luck, but at least that we would be competitive and at least challenge Serbia for the playoff spot, which I think is how it's going to work out. I think Portugal probably will will win our group. I'd like to think we could do it, but I think the smart money would be on Portugal. But yeah, I think the time for this discussion is at the end of the campaign, not at the beginning of the campaign. And it's whether he's the man to bring us to Germany. I think we have that discussion in November. I think maybe, hopefully, we won't even be having that discussion. We'll be saying, who do we want in the playoffs?
I'll just come back to you on that point again and continue a little bit more on that, Gary. But we've had a third goal at Old Trafford, and it's gone the way of the visitors. So Sheffield United are back in front. I have to say the response from going behind was absolutely fantastic. They've been brilliant all night. The character they're showing, just to never say die attitude, and just to keep going and sticking to their game plan. Like I thought after United got the goal, they want to kick on, but just trying to see who it was that got the goal from here. It was a shot from just outside the box. It did take a slight deflection on it, so I'm not sure whether it's going to go down as an own goal or not. John Lundstrom involved in the play. I think it's Baldock, I think I could be correct in saying, that got the final effort. No, it was Oliver Burke, the Scotland international, who came off the bench. So yeah, it said pull back from Lundstrom. He takes a shot. It took a slight deflection, went off the bar and in under David De Gea. So Sheffield United are 15 minutes away from a famous victory that will give them some light at the end of the tunnel, at the bottom end of the table, and will make things very, very interesting the other half of the table. And you could probably hear the cheers from the blue half of Manchester as well from this one. But just something else I was going to add there, what you're saying about Stephen Kenny as well. Yes, but I think as well, like the most kind of genuine Ireland fans, I think they have to kind of like be realistic and kind of see the situation and where we are. Like we've a young team with a lot of good, promising young players coming up for the first time in a while, and it's going to take a while for them to gel and bold. And I do think Euro 2024 is a more kind of realistic aim, because possibly qualifying might be a little bit easier. But I just think by the time these players kind of grow and develop and give Stephen kind of a real kind of good feed for and everything else like that, I think even as well, like just reading Champagne Football as well at the moment, like it's kind of no surprise even from like this, from reading that and seeing everything that went on like that, the kind of situation that we kind of find ourselves in the pitch, because everything off the pitch was kind of so bad for a while. So like in that situation, you kind of almost feel sorry for Stephen Kenny, because like if things had been managed better down through the years, like he'd probably have kind of a better kind of setup and better kind of gig going from at the moment.
Yeah, it's probably a fair comment, but yeah, and I agree. I think Germany 2024 is probably a more realistic target. There's 24 teams for obviously as well, and there's only 13 UEFA nations will reach Qatar, so it's a big ask. Moving on, Sean Bonner is still optimistic. If Rangers lose 5 games, then it could be game on. Well, there's 2 Old Firm games to come as well. But Rangers lose 3 more games, just having won at Easter Road tonight. And I know they won at Aberdeen a couple of weeks ago as well. Sorry, Sean. I think it's over. I think Steven Gerrard is finally going to win a league title as a manager, not as a player. But yeah, there's just no way back. And Sean also reckons every time Kelleher plays, he's likely to keep a clean sheet. Every time Allison plays, he concedes 1 or 2 goals. Well,
I think that's I think it's a bit harsh. Like Kelleher's only played 2 matches, whereas like it's been in for a longer period of time. Like, but Liverpool did, like, even as bad as our form has been last while, like Liverpool have kept a fair number of clean sheets. Like we kept one against United, where Alisson was probably our best player. Kept one as well against Newcastle. Like so, obviously the disappointment of the season late on against Burnley. Like, but I think like if Kelleher had played a longer kind of trajectory game, I think it'd be a more fair comparison to kind of have between the two of them.
Yeah, I think Alisson will be the goalkeeper. I think even Kelleher is doing incredibly well, and it's great for his development. And just as I speak, was that wide? I wasn't looking. I think it's gone wide. I thought Leicester got gone ahead. James Burke reckon if Nathan Collins goes to the Premier League, do you think he gets game time? Yeah, I have very high hopes for Nathan Collins. Will be get many caps in a green shirt. I think he looks a real prospect, and to be playing, I've said this before actually, normally to play as a centre half you need to be 23, 24. You need to have developed, take some time to come through. At 19 he was already starting as a centre back, and yeah, I think he will definitely go probably in the summer. I was reading tweets from Neil O'Riordan today that he reckons he'll go in the summer. Probably go to the Premier League, possibly this window, but more than likely in the summer.
Do you think if, for instance, if it's the case come the summer, I think if Stoke were to end up getting promoted, do you think he'd end up staying there?
Yeah, actually, you talked about this. I did talk about this with Paul. They have gone on a bit of a bad run, so they've slipped out of the playoff places. Yeah, that's obviously his best route to the Premier League. If Stoke can get back, I actually watched some of their game against Watford, and they were desperately unlucky. Much the better team at 0-0, and Watford kind of hit them. Well, Watford improved in the second half, but definitely it was a bit of a smash and grab by Watford. I thought Stoke deserved at least a point and probably deserved to win. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them to get into the playoffs and to get up that way. But you never know. Yeah. Sean reckons Egan has to stay in the team. Yeah, I think arguably at the moment, John Egan is probably our best defender. I think he's the automatic choice. Possibly Darragh O'Shea and Nathan Collins could be the centre-backs in a few years' time. But for me now, yes, John Egan is the automatic choice.
Just to touch on as well from Old Trafford, we won't have an Irish goal scorer on the night. Dave McGoldrick has just been replaced. Ryan Brewster has come on for him now for the last 10 minutes or so. So I suppose it's surprising to see that's a bold move from Chris Wilder. I thought he might have brought on more kind of a defensive kind of move to kind of maybe sit on what they have, but maybe he kind of feels that they have a good balance in their team already and kind of help kind of with their attacking prowess. And who knows, maybe add a third goal. But like I said, 10 minutes ago in this game, still no major kind of press from Manchester United. They just haven't really kind of got going in this game. Like I said, there's no two ways about it. Like, this is definitely 3 points dropped in the case of whether they want to be seen as title contenders if they don't go on to pick something from this game. Just to touch on something there with Nathan Collins, it's kind of something that's kind of come across my mind. Like, we touched on it there earlier about like it's very difficult for like Conor McCarthy and Joe Shaughnessy to get into the spot because of our rake and quality of centre backs. Like, Nathan Collins is someone who hasn't even got into the senior squad yet, and he's someone who's definitely going to be ahead of them in the pecking order. Why do you kind of just seem to think that Gary, like over the last couple of years, we've no shortage of quality centre backs? Like, you could take your pick between Kieran Clark, John Egan, Nathan Collins, Darragh O'Shea, but yet like we don't seem to be producing any kind of goal scorers or anyone who's in great form attacking wise. Is it just kind of because all our players do kind of seem to play for them kind of mid, kind of lower half kind of Premier League clubs? So like the defenders are used to kind of being more involved in the action and are in the thick of things a lot more, while the attacking players probably don't get as much kind of involvement in the game.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, maybe it's just a production line. At the moment, we are producing a lot of really good defenders. I mean, we had a time, we still are. I mean, the debate there on who should we play right back. We have a lot of decent fullbacks as well. Yeah, I think we need strikers. We also need creative midfielder. I know people will say Jack Byrne straight away, which is probably what I'd say as well. But I'm not sure that Jack is in line to make our starting 11 yet, but just a creative midfield player, somebody who's going to pick out a pass and create chances for our strikers, and then a striker like Robbie Keane to take the chances. But yeah, we do. It seems to be we're producing plenty of defenders, and it looks like a couple of good goalkeepers on coming through as well to challenge Darren Randolph in the next year or two. But yeah, we certainly could do with some creative midfield players and some strikers. So what do you think, Doherty or Coleman or Darragh O'Shea for right back in Belgrade?
Yeah, just quickly touch on just a development from Old Trafford first. Just double substitution for Manchester United. So Luke Shaw, who's of course has been in great form lately, surprised he didn't start this game, maybe just because of the fixture congestion. He's come on for Tellez. And Tensabe, who actually was the player who had the deflection from Burke Shaw, he's been replaced by Van de Beek. So definitely kind of a sign that Manchester United are going to put more of attacking emphasis on this game. Yeah, that's an interesting one, because Darragh O'Shea bit by bit is getting a little bit more kind of comfortable at Premier League level. Myself and Paul Tierney touched on this last week at the watch along for their game against West Ham. He is one of them players. I do think West Brom are one of them sides that are going to go down this season. I think Big Sam is going to lose his status. Has never been relegated. I do think he probably stay in the Championship next year, but I think he's so young, and like the Championship is still such a good level. It still wouldn't be any harm for his development. Like, at the end of the day, he broke into the West Brom team around this time last year, so he hasn't even got a full season of Championship football under his belt. So still, I don't think that'd be a setback for him if that was the case. It's interesting one, like I say, he's come in for a couple of games and he's done kind of quite well. I would kind of like to see us play a back five, because it's a role that like Doherty thrives under with Wolves, and he gave him a license to go forward. Stevens, who I know isn't particularly having the best of season with Sheffield United this year, but like we're giving the benefit of the doubt and say he thrived under that role with Sheffield United in the Championship a couple of seasons ago and in the Premier League last year. And then you could kind of accommodate three at the back to go alongside. Like the way things are looking at the moment, you could probably have Egan, O'Shea, and Coleman. I know maybe mightn't have the three most kind of natural kind of fit there. Clark is someone I like to see there, but unfortunately, you just can't guarantee if he's going to be around come March. Another injury's picked up there. There's no two doubts about it. Anytime he plays for Newcastle over the last couple of seasons, he's looked very, very good, even a Newcastle team that's struggling this season. But again, it is kind of a worry, a concern. Like, you worry about his fitness. So I think that could be an option maybe going forward for the Serbia game, that back five personnel that I just named.
Yeah, I actually like to see a three or a back five, but I don't think Stephen's going to do that. I mean, he has his way of playing. And I know he has said that he's not averse. He said it in one of the press conferences, but I don't see him doing that. I would certainly like to see Darragh O'Shea playing, and even though I know what I said about Belgrade being a tough place to go, and of course we got Shane Duffy as well in the mix. John Egan is probably the only certain starter in our defence. So it's probably a tough one, and it probably depends on the game time Seamus Coleman gets in the meantime, and the game time Matt Doherty gets. But because still a couple of months away, so now it's probably it's tough to make the call, because Seamus has been in and out. He didn't make the Everton team tonight, and Matt has lost his place in Spurs. That Serge Aurier is in place, and I don't know. Do you go with Darragh O'Shea, Kieran Clark, and John Egan, or do you go with? I think Enda Stevens will be left back. Or do you play Darragh O'Shea in the middle? It'd be very hard to leave Darragh O'Shea out. Very hard to leave Kieran Clark out as well if he's fit and available, as you say.
So are you seem to be kind of along the lines of leaving out Shane Duffy because of his form at Celtic, and you can't go off past reputation. Yes, he's doing far in the big games. Even that Slovakia game, in fairness to Bratislava, he was very good that night. But like, as we touched on, we're not short of options, and we've players that are used to playing big games in the Premier League and playing big games for Ireland. So it's not like as if we solely have to have Shane Duffy there because of a lack of an experience around him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be writing him off yet, but his form, and someone said in the comments, he didn't have a good game tonight, even though it was a clean sheet. It would depend, I think, very much on his form, and it's got to have been affecting his confidence as well. And but yeah, but I mean, he could be the only one playing. Thankfully, he's still in the Celtic team, and hopefully he'll get plenty of game time. So a lot will depend on who's fit, who's available, and so it's very tough to make the call now. But from a situation where we'd a lot of right backs, we've none of them playing regularly, unless you play Darragh O'Shea there instead of in a centre back. Paul Tierney's nailing his colours to the mast. He's supporting Sheffield United tonight anyway, so probably a good result.
We all are.
Arsenal, oh, absolutely, me too. Arsenal actually think play Man United at the weekend. I could be wrong on that. I think Arsenal play Man United. I had looked at the fixtures.
They should, yeah, because I know just for going for fixtures, for instance, Liverpool are playing West Ham this weekend. And I know in the reverse fixture, when we played West Ham, that same weekend, Man United played Arsenal at Old Trafford. So, yeah, they should be down to play each other this weekend at the Emirates. And, yeah, I suppose Paul Tierney will be looking at kind of quietly. Arsenal are quietly starting to go about their business now at this stage. That was actually a very impressive result last night, because Southampton were a good team, bet them the FA Cup. I know different selections, last few many days for that. Like I'm even at that stage. I'm looking over my shoulder. Arsenal only 4 points behind Liverpool. Like, I can't be making Arsenal push my jokes anymore. So they are doing quite well, in fairness to them. I don't think they will get top four, and I don't think they'll be savage contenders for it. But you kind of can see there is some sort of progression going on there under Mikel Arteta.
I just see Everton, this is 89th minute, Seamus Coleman has come on, so he will get some game time tonight. He's come on for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Well, I say it's a
That's a
strange one.
weird one.
They're drawing 1-1 at home to Leicester, but certainly it's a very defensive move, uh, which would indicate that Everton are probably happier with the point than Leicester are. As I say, Leicester on the attack there. James Maddison just set up a good chance and just I was deflected over. It's gone for a corner actually. Uh, but we're in the 90th minute now, and it's a corner for Leicester, and Madison is actually going to take that now as well. A lovely player who's eligible for Ireland as well,
Well,
but
he's not anymore.
not anymore. He was eligible. Yeah,
He was,
corners just
but yeah,
yeah.
just go back to being a Liverpool fan. Like at the moment, like if these two results can stay the way they are, like it's a good little boost for Liverpool. Like obviously it'll count for absolutely nothing if they can't go and beat Spurs tomorrow night. Like, but like I said, you have to be looking at it from a situation like of Everton and West Ham and teams like that in terms of top four. It keeps us, at least Everton. I know there's a couple of games in hand, they won't go above us, and like you also have to keep one eye on the title as well. And Manchester United dropping points is a chance for us to close the gap and still keep eyes on that. But like I said, it's no good unless you can go and do your own business. And at the moment, there's no guarantees with Liverpool's form at the moment. But I would be slightly confident if you believe in omens or anything else like that. Liverpool actually went through a similar run 4 years ago as well under Jurgen Klopp. I think we went five league matches. It was 5 league matches as well actually without a win. And our next fixture was Spurs at home, and we won that 2-0. Sadio Mane scored 2 goals just after returning from the African Cup of Nations. So it's 5 games that will win the league now. It's Spurs at home tomorrow, albeit away. So I'm just hoping that's a similar omen to 4 years ago as well. I also hope it's a similar omen because that season we squeezed top 4 on the last day against Middlesbrough. So I'm hoping, like, if that's the worst case scenario, I'll take top 4 again this season. But I'm not totally giving up on the title anyway.
Okay, yeah, it'll be a lot of teams in the mix there. David Walsh reckons
that type of season.
The manager should pick the formation based on the players available rather than his favourite systems. Yeah, interesting one. How concerned are we about Enda Stevens' injury troubles? Yeah, I'm not actually sure what the latest injury issue is, but I would like to see him get some more game time because we don't have a lot of options at left back. I think you're looking at Ryan Manning. Yeah, Ryan Manning maybe after that.
Yeah, Manning, like it's a move that seems to backfire from the season going to Swansea. Very little game time. I know he's starting the cup today against Aston Villa, but was on the bench again tonight for the game against Brentford. Another kind of a person or player to consider for that position, Derek Williams, he seems to be out with a long-term injury as well. So we do seem to be a little bit short in that position.
We could play Seamus on the right and Matt Doherty on the left, of course.
Left, yeah.
James Burke. It's good news. Good news. Aaron Connolly's back from injury, absolutely. And Paul Tierney, Arsenal v United on Saturday, going for the double over them, an easy win. Well, maybe if United play like that, I haven't obviously seen the game tonight, but if it sounds like the way they're playing and losing at home to Sheffield United, it could be an easy win for the Gunners. Some turnaround since Christmas. Arsenal were looking at relegation maybe before Christmas, and now they're looking at top 4 again. So I'm sure Paul's a very happy man with Arsenal lately. And but maybe we're back to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's job is on the line again. I don't know. The management in the Premier League is just so precarious. It's unbelievable. I mean, Frank Lampard was top of the league 6 weeks ago, and he's out of a job now. And
it's funny how quickly maybe that's why Chris Wilder could be thinking that things could turn for Air Fortunes. They could get on a good run. It's that type of season, like that. Sheffield United could be now. They're still
even with a win, they're 10 points. They're 10 points behind Brighton. And I think it's too big.
City City away on Saturday or Sunday doesn't help. The only thing though, like just going back to what I was kind of saying, start the show, if they win this game, if they can hang on for the next 90 seconds, that puts them on 8 points. Like I think that should end any talk of getting any less points than Derby. I think they'll definitely go on to pick at least 4 more points up throughout the course of the season. But they will kind of feel that like the big thing is like West Brom and Fulham, they aren't exactly like going on great runs either. They're only picking up odd points here and there, but it is the likes of Burnley now going on a great run. Brighton are getting a couple of results there. Newcastle could be, I think, are the one club that could get really kind of sucked in. So if then cluster of 3 or 4 clubs can just stay doing as what they're doing at the moment, and like Sheffield United can target them games, like that's 9 points potentially that 10 got. But like I know there needs to be a lot more than that. Like, but I do think you could be looking at something like I do think something like 80 odd points could be enough to win the league this year. I know Leicester won it a couple of years ago with 81. I think it's going to be something similar. I think 30 points, just between 30 35 points would probably be enough to stay up this season as well.
Yeah, I think normally it's a bit closer to the 35. My game is over, actually. It's finished 1-1. Decent point probably for both teams. Keeps their run going. Leicester in their title race, and Everton in the battle for top 4.
Yeah, I've got 20 seconds left here as Man United are throwing everything out to try and, at this stage, surely only just get an equaliser. Yeah, they're camped in the ball. They're just trying to get themselves in a good position to get a cross in. Fernandes is pulling in, but it's headed away, and it's Ryan Brewster just absolutely hoofs the ball down out for a throw in. We're literally now played the 4 minutes of injury time, so this is surely the last attack if Man United will even get a chance to launch the ball forward. This, of the craziest of crazy seasons, it is over. I was just going to say, the craziest of crazy seasons, this is surely the most surprising result of the season. Forget Spurs beating United 6-1, forget Villa beating Liverpool 7-2. This for me is definitely the upset of the season. You have to give Sheffield United absolutely tremendous credit. I said beforehand this was probably going to be a comfortable victory for Manchester United. Full credit to the Blades. They probably took obviously inspiration from a recent victory against Newcastle. The fact that they gave Man United a right good run for the money not that long ago as well. And like as I said, as a Liverpool fan, it does put a wry smile on my face, but as I said, it means absolutely nothing unless Liverpool can take advantage and get 3 points tomorrow. I know there will be a couple of Liverpool fans that will take this as a great chance to laugh back at Manchester, and rightly so, because they've had a good laugh us the last couple of weeks. But for me, unless in 24 hours' time I'm celebrating Liverpool victory, this result unfortunately won't give me any pleasure to mock Manchester United fans.
I'll just give one, absolutely agree with that, and great win for Sheffield United. One great Irish shout out, and Paul will be proud of this. A big shout out to Jace Kabaya, because I was talking about Livingston's great run. So they had 11 games unbeaten. They were drawing 0-0 with Kilmarnock. Jays comes off the bench in the 76th minute, and in the 89th minute he scores the goal to put them 1-0 up, and they went on to win 2-0. So great shout out to Jays, and I really hope he gets a run in the team there. And what a win for Livingston. I think that's 12. I could be even losing count, actually. I think it's 12 games unbeaten, and I think something like 9 or 10 of those have been wins as well. So huge shout out, great run for Livy, and great to see Jace Kabaya. I know he'd already made his debut against Celtic, and he was involved, the innocent party, I will add, in Scott Brown's red card. But great to see him get on the score sheet tonight, and what a win for Livingston. 2-0 over Kilmarnock, and they're looking certainties for top 6 in Scotland.
Yeah, it would be a great achievement for them, and who knows, maybe even push for European football. So yeah, we thought surely tonight Manchester United would be top of the table, or at least Leicester could possibly go level on goal difference. But like I was talking about Liverpool there, but you'd have to probably say once again, without kicking the ball, it's probably been Manchester City's night. You'd have to say, Gary.
Yeah, a big night for City. I mean, they now have a game in hand on Man United, and still a point clear at the top. A game in hand in Leicester, there's still 2 points clearing them. And you're back to the gap between Liverpool and Man City is actually 7 points, which is, well, it's not impossible. I know they play each other in a week or two, isn't it? I know it's coming up very soon.
Sunday week, the 7th. Yeah.
Oh, Sunday week. Okay.
At Anfield, so.
Yeah, now I know Liverpool have a couple of tough games coming up against Spurs and West Ham, but if they were to get back to winning ways and beat Man City, then I think it's race on. But I find it very hard to look past Man City. They look really, really impressive, hugely impressive, hammering a West Brom. But even the way they demolished Chelsea there a few weeks ago, they've just seemed to have found form, and I think they're going to be very, very tough to stop. So my money would be on City winning the Premier League.
Yeah, even with all the COVID issues, like even that Chelsea game, they actually had a lot of COVID issues and were still very, very comfortable. Biggest thing as well, I think you have to just notice, and why they even look more impressive is defensively, they've just really shone up. And now Laporte is back as well, so that's a big coup for them. The only possible thing is, with the likes of Liverpool come up and Spurs come up in recent weeks, no Kevin De Bruyne for the next couple of weeks, but even go back to that season a couple of years ago when they just picked Liverpool for the title, De Bruyne played very, very little football that season, so you have players like Phil Foden coming into their own and stuff like that, they'll find a way to adjust. Maybe again, they might go clutching straws. Like they had Aguero back then, he's not really at the race this season, but they've coped kind of without him. Like they didn't exactly hit the ground running early on this season. It's not really because like even it's not that long ago in the reverse fixture, they only drew 1-1 with West Brom. But ever since then, they've just that kind of seemed to their last kind of kick up the backside, their last kind of warning, and they've just literally taken off ever since then, really.
Yeah, and Bernardo Silva seems to have found his form as well. So looks, well, yeah, I think they're going to be very hard, and they're very, very, very solid at the back. Diaz and Stones really seem to be a great partnership. Well, I think that's it, Ger. We've probably come to the end of the show. Our games are over, and appreciate all the comments, lads. It was great, and appreciate all the likes as well. And I think we'll call it a night, and we'll be back soon. I'm sure we'll be back on by the weekend or next week for the midweek games. So thanks everybody, and good night.
Cheers. I hope everyone's keeping safe out there.